Welcome to another episode of NEC-Suites, where we meet with community leaders to gain insights for the benefit of our small business community. Here today, joining me is Anne-Marie Hayward, who is the publisher of the wonderful Orlando Business Journal. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So this year with our NEC-Suites, we're taking a little different twist. Instead of sitting in a room and talking in chairs, we're going to get to know you a little better by obviously doing an interview with a hobby that you enjoy. And in this case, as you mentioned, you are a yogi.
I love my yoga.
We're gonna do some yoga.
Perfect.
And hopefully not look like a total fool. But
we got this. We got it.
So we'll go ahead and get started with the first pose. And I'm gonna ask you, what does yoga do for you? Why do you do yoga?
So yoga originally started for me back in college. I was a soccer player in college, and we did it as a method to stretch out our bodies and do all of that. A lot of people like to do yoga for meditation. I find I have a hard time shutting off my brain, but what I do find it does for me is it really provides me an opportunity to decompress, to really stretch out my body, to give my body that opportunity to reset after a hard day. And so I found that it really works for me in that way.
That's how it works. So
Yep.
let's do the first pose.
Okay. First pose is called the tree pose, right?
Okay.
So you're going to stand just with your legs a little bit here. You're going to bend your knees, right? You're going to bring it down, and you're going to bring your arms up, and you're going to be going up that way. So you're just looking up. What this is doing is you're holding your core in, is it's allowing your core muscles to engage, but also your thigh, your butt, all of those areas, and it allows to do that. And the longer you hold this pose, you'll start to feel a little shaky as you do because your muscles are engaging and working. So you do this for a period of time. Once you're done, then you can relax and you can come back down into just a standard pose.
Yes.
So once you do this a couple of times, you start to feel it. The first time you're like, this is easy and I got it. As you do it more and as you begin to bend and engage, you can start to feel it in your core, in your thighs, all of those areas.
So you said something that what yoga meant to you, that decompression. And I think it's important from an entrepreneur perspective. You, as an owner, you've got the stresses of obviously meeting payroll, making sure the lights stay on. There's so many potential households that are, or your employees' households are contingent upon your leadership that could be taxing.
Absolutely.
And so it's finding something that allows them to make that, allows them to stop and truly be able to relax so that you're ready to take on the next day. And so yoga definitely is one that's known for doing that. And and it's interesting, you're not one to be able to shut your brain.
I am not.
I'm the same way, which is why I run. The longer I go, the more my thoughts are out and about, but I've released a lot of that tension and stress. And I don't ever get a runner's high. I get the runner's cool down. The cool down's what does it for me. So let's talk a little about the Orlando Business Journal, and we'll start with just a softball. What's the mission of the Orlando Business Journal?
That's actually a really great question, and it's a simple question, but we get it a lot. Simply, our mission is to help people grow their businesses, advance their careers, and simplify their professional lives. And there's a number of ways we do that. One is through intelligence, right? Through the stories that we provide, allowing our readers and the community to know what's going on within the business community. Through our advertising arm for businesses to be able to get their name out there and begin to build a brand. From our event side of things, it's that networking and that building of relationships.
And the events are just remarkable, I will say. And it's nice to have an environment where it truly is focused to entrepreneurs, from an understanding of what's happening in the community, getting to know individuals. And so I think of it almost as not a chamber, because sometimes chambers are either geographically or designed to kind of assist or be a point of entry to the social business socialization side to particular individuals. But in your case, you transcend all of that.
And I like to think that we actually complement the chambers, right, in providing that actionable intelligence that helps them do their jobs well.
Correct. So let's do the next pose.
Okay. The next one is called Warrior Two, which is pretty simple. You're going to put one foot forward.
Okay.
The other one, you're going to swing back here. You're going to lean into this front leg and just put your arms out We're going to take the tips of our fingers and reach towards the wall facing away from us. And that, again, as it engages your core, you can feel the strength in your legs. And as you do this too, once you do it for some period of time, you're going to feel that shakiness and that stretching. As you do it more often, you'll be able to sink a little bit lower and stretch a little bit lower. So you're going to feel this again in your core. There's nothing about yoga that doesn't involve your core, but you're going to begin to feel that in that front thigh and then that gentle stretch in the back. So you just kind of build and grow off of there. As you do it, and you would do it repeatedly, you can sink more into it as you begin to feel it especially in your inner thigh.
We're going to stay up here. So this is a little more of a remedial question, and just, for those that don't understand the business of newspapers, what's the difference between a publisher, which is what you are,
that's what I
am, and an editor to a newspaper?
Do you know, that's a great question, and we actually do get this a lot. So
flip sides,
we have, we can switch sides and put this forward. Our editor-in-chief is responsible for all of our newsroom operations. So everything, when you think of, I know I'm doing
I did this one wrong.
But you think about our newsroom operations, we can go back to the side. When you think about our stories and the content that we push out, and he's responsible for that overall strategy of the stories that we put out to our community. My job as the publisher is essentially being responsible for the oversight of the entire organization. So advertising, events, all of the newsroom, everything like that. When you think about it, I have the revenue operations and all of the pieces there. So those are the differences between the two.
So it's the CEO, the equivalent
Essentially,
of CEO
of the CEO,
newspaper. Now, the Orlando Business Journal, it has a parent company
Correct.
that it crosses the entire country, correct?
We're actually one of 40 business journals around the country, and we report up, we're American City Business Journals. So the nice part is we get the fluidity of having 40 markets, but the autonomy to make sure it's personalized to our community.
So it meets the needs of this local community. Interesting. So, and when you think of Orlando, we've often said it's hospitality driven. You don't get to be one of 40 markets without having true substance. So I think, the fact that you're anchored here as well says a lot to the robustness that's available here in Central Florida.
Okay, so our next pose is actually called a tree pose. So what we're going to do is you're going to take one leg and you're going to put it wherever you're comfortable resting up against the other leg. Some people like to go lower, some as they go higher, right? This is a balance issue, right? So as you do your balance there, then you want to try and find your center. And I find that it helps to focus on one focus point in front of you because this is truly a balance play.
Okay. So
we can come down as we talk in the next question.
Okay.
If you want.
Oh, now I've got it.
There you go.
So as publisher, that's obviously a very impressive role. What was your journey to get there?
So I think my journey was probably very non-traditional. I didn't grow up in media. I didn't start my career there. I actually started my career, I thought I was going to medical school. I was accepted into medical school out of college. I deferred a year, met my husband. I think I chose well after 26 years married. But then I actually entered into the real estate industry and began coaching and training throughout that. I had several executive leadership roles. When we moved here to Orlando, I was actually still working my business up in Boston, right? We moved here 7 years ago and commuting back and forth. When I realized it got to be a whole lot, I was actually recruited to the business journals as the vice president of sales and advertising.
Okay.
So I started
with real estate, kind of the sales side.
The sales side was the natural transition. Within 14 months, I was promoted to publisher. And having had CEO experience in the past certainly helped with, P&Ls and understanding the running of a business, but it was an entirely new language and industry that I had to learn in doing it. And I find that I love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things you do really well, and you see it by your passion and enthusiasm, and just how the paper's grown as well.
Thank you.
Under your leadership, so that's neat. And so, as an entrepreneur, oftentimes we think of our careers in one particular way, but you're wearing so many different hats, and in your case, it was the vast experience from other things that led you to the CEO role. So,
and it's funny because I had a mentor tell me a long time ago, never say no until you know what you're saying no to. And that was a mantra that I live by in taking this job and saying I'm going to take a chance at it. And it's turned into, a passion point for me to be able to do.
Never say no until you know what you're saying no to.
Yep.
I like that. I like that.
All right. So just like we did on the one side, we're actually going to repeat on the other side. So just your leg coming up into a place that it's comfortable.
Okay. I'm going to start lower. Oh, I think I
Finding
got
your
it.
center.
Okay. Yay. Okay, so in this day and age where individuals capture their news in so many different ways, how has the paper managed to stay relevant? I'm like determined to kind of get this
You're
close.
going to get it. You know, I think one of the things we do is we're constantly talking to the community, the business community, those that are making those news stories, those that are transacting in this community to find out what's of importance to them. We hear a lot about workforce development. We hear a lot about the economy in general, transportation, all of those pieces. And so when we hear that repeatedly from the people we talk about in our community, that leads us to the places that we should be reporting on. Sometimes the stories come to us, right, just through natural things. But when we really talk about what is of value, it really is what our readers, what our subscribers, what the community and business leaders are telling are of value to them.
So it's the content that you focus on based on your client.
Correct.
And so just again, back to the small business, at the end of the day, what your client wants is what's going to get them through the door. It's what's going to have your product
how do we
sold.
help them, right? And that's at the end of the day, that's all we want to do is how can we help those in the business community.
So excellent. So great segue. How does the OBJ help the small business community?
You know, I think that question is a great one from the perspective of as small businesses, whether they're a new small business or an existing small business that's been in there a long time, there is a big competitive landscape here in Central Florida, right? As we have the growth and all of those pieces. So really making sure that we're providing them with information. We have our leads through our book of lists that we do, that we put out. We put out over 60 lists each year of those that are making business and making news in the community. So making sure they have access to that, but also making sure we're providing those connection points. And that comes a lot through our events. It comes through some of those custom activations that we do, but really just making sure we're giving them that opportunity to compete on an even landscape.
Yeah, I like that. So we'll do the last pose.
Okay.
And I'll let you lead that.
So we're going to actually sit down on the mat.
Oh.
Okay, so we're going to just take one leg and tuck it in. We're going to put the other leg out, and this is going to give us a nice stretch along our inner thigh as we do it. So as we reach over and we grab towards our foot, whatever is comfortable. I find as I do this more and more, as I do it, I'll lean further into it. But I think sometimes the mistake that we make is we immediately go into a big pull and we'll end up stretching something a little too much. So taking it nice and slow.
So I used to do gymnastics, and just the fact that I'm touching my toes still is pretty impressive.
I figured at my age, I'm just happy I can find my toes.
So what was the greatest business advice ever given to you?
You know, I think I actually just said it a little bit ago, is just never saying no till you know what you're saying no to, right? We're all presented with some really great opportunities throughout the course of our career. We can switch sides and do this on this side. And so, you know, sometimes I think we're quick to say no because it's outside of our comfort zone, or if it's something that we don't think necessarily we might be good at or we're able to do. And I give this advice to my kids as well, is just slow down a little bit, take a time to really evaluate what it is you might be saying no to, because this might be your next great opportunity or experience. And so I share that with my team, I share that with my kids, and I think it served me very well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Anne-Marie Hayward, publisher of the Orlando Business Journal. So we wrap up our shows with our phrase of start or grow your business, make connections, NEC the possibilities. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.